Greetings! EcoFlow is back with their biggest, baddest flagship product ever made, the Delta Pro Ultra X. No, it's not the love child of Elon Musk, at least not yet, but it's the world's largest portable home backup power station, pairing an insane 12,000 watt inverter with heated modular 6 kilowatt hour batteries and a mildly water resistant package, ready to take over the world when paired up with its new AI-driven 200 amp smart home panel system. It's the world's first powerful, easy to install whole home backup system, ready in 7 days. Now that sounds pretty badass, but is it any good? Let's find out.
HOBOTECH.
So let's clear up any instant confusion. The Delta Pro Ultra X, or DPUX as we'll call it, is actually comprised of 2 units. The DPUX inverter unit, which sits up on top, has no battery. You got to pair it up with at least one of these modular DPUX batteries. For the remainder of this video, we're just going to call this pairing the DPUX, as this is the primary base package that EcoFlow sells. Now, the stats on these batteries are going to sound very familiar to owners of the original Delta Pro Ultra, or DPU, because these are mildly updated versions of the existing batteries, and yes, they're backwards compatible with the DPU. If you want to use your original DPU batteries on this newer DPUX inverter, you can. All you need to do is a simple firmware update on them to work with this newer unit. The DPUX batteries are 6144 watt hours, EV grade lithium iron phosphate, UL 9540 certified to be safe and reliable. They are heated, so they will still charge when ambient temperatures go below freezing. You can add as many as 10 of these batteries per DPUX inverter unit, which is twice as many batteries as the previous DPU supported. When 3 of these DPUX units are combined together using one of EcoFlow's smart panel systems, which we'll cover here in a bit, you can have up to, now are you sitting down, 180 kilowatt hours. That's 180,000 watt hours. If you have no idea what that means, it means maxed out, this system could run the average American home for a full week at least without any solar panels or recharging whatsoever, and do it virtually silent with no fuel, no dangerous fumes, and no carbon monoxide. Your neighbors are going to have no idea you even have it running, and that's the point, isn't it? That means you could save your ammo to hunt for food instead. On to size and weight, the inverter unit that goes on top is about 70 pounds, not too bad. Each 6 kilowatt hour battery under it weighs, however, about 111 pounds. So yeah, it's just under 200 pounds of hell on wheels if you include the trolley, which I don't have pictured in this video. You can stack up to 5 batteries with 1 inverter unit per trolley. Each DPUX head unit includes 1 in the box. This head unit is 27 by 19 by 9 inches. Including the handles, and there's a heat sink that protrudes a little on the back. The batteries themselves are slightly smaller at 26 by 18 by 8 inches. They do stack and interlock, so 5 batteries with 1 inverter is just over 4 foot tall. Add about 5 more inches if you include the trolley. The display is bespoke for the DPUX and quite fancy pants. It's a full color LCD, provides all the standard info you could potentially need. Also new is the blingy new light effect. Check this out. When I hit the AC button, it starts doing like a Cylon type thing from Battlestar Galactica, and it's got these little things up the side, all blinky light show, and this changes colors depending on what's going on. Now, as of the filming of this video, you can't turn off the blinky lights separately. You basically have to turn off the entire screen to get the lights to shut off, so you can see how that's done. Now, I did put a request into the engineering team to go ahead and add an option to the app for those sensitive to flashing lights. You really don't want to see this in a dark room anyway. It's a lot brighter than it looks here on camera. EcoFlow is pretty good with their firmware updates, so hopefully this will be something that's updated soon. And in case you haven't already guessed, this is an early release unit, and I am running the latest beta firmware as of this filming. Now, what about the inverter that's in the DPUX? Now, these covers are actually easily removable. They are magnetic, so you can see they will stick there. But to give you an idea of what we have inside, these are the outlets that you get, and the covers snap right back on very easily, just like that. This new inverter is a world-class 12 kilowatts in size. That's 12,000 watts, and runs both 120 and 240 volt split at the same time. Now, there are literally only 2 buttons on this, and that is the power on and off button for the main unit and the AC inverter on and off. That's it. There's no separate 120 and 240 volt. When you press that AC button, everything's hot. You get two 20 amp 120 volt outlets. You get an L1430R 30 amp 240 volt split, and you get a 1450R 50 amp 240 volt split. This makes this the world's first portable power station, with the word portable being accented there, that offers a true 50 amp appliance or RV hookup able to provide the full 50 amps at either 120 or 240 volts. Do note that all the AC outlets are disabled when it is plugged into one of EcoFlow's smart home panels. The outlets are only there if you plan to not use the smart panel, but instead roll it around to whatever location to power appliances directly. Or if you plan to use your own transfer switch, in that case you would use the output from the 50 amp into your own transfer switch into your home, and that will give you the full 12 kilowatts. Now there is one major caveat you need to be aware of. In order to get the full 12,000 watts of output of this inverter, requires attaching 2 of these DPUX batteries to the head unit. If you only attach a single battery like you see here, output is reduced to about 7,200 watts, or roughly the same output as the outgoing original Delta Pro Ultra. At least this is what I found in my testing. Now, as previously mentioned, you can parallel up to 3 of these DPUX units together via one of their smart home panels and combine the inverter power to an insane 36,000 watts. This kind of power is for those of you with really big grow operations, or you have a secret underground lair full of computers with blinky lights and sharks with friggin' laser beams on their heads. Yeah, baby, yeah! Now as for ways to charge. Out of the box, the DPUX comes with a proprietary, and I'll show it to you, AC cable, good for basic 120 volt, 15 amp, 1800 watt wall charging, a single DPUX battery like this combination you see here. This will do it in about 4 hours from the wall. However, most folks buying this are probably going to end up 240 volt AC charging via one of the smart home panels, which is a heck of a lot faster. Or they're simply going to stick to primary solar charging. Normally, I'd gripe about a proprietary cable like this, but this is really considered a semi-permanent home backup system, not something that generally leaves the premises. Now, via one of the new smart panels, you can charge the DPUX as fast as 12 kilowatts if you have 2 batteries attached, and that'll get you topped up in about an hour. This is extremely handy because the smart panels have what EcoFlow calls Storm Guard, where you'll get a message via app that the storm is heading to your zip code. The DPUX will then automatically charge to 100% from the grid to make sure that you have full backup power if the grid goes down. Now, as we all know, weather can change quickly, so being able to top up your batteries before that 3 a.m. tropical storm hits could actually be a lifesaver. Now, as for solar, this is where things get really hot. The DPUX is a major upgrade. So how much of an upgrade? 10,000 watts of total MPPT solar charging through a pair of 82 500 volt, 5,000 watt solar controllers, or up to 30,000 watts when 3 units are paired together with one of the home panel systems. 30 kilowatts of solar could charge an entire day's worth of batteries in 1 hour flat. Yep, 1 hour. So yes, while that would be considered extreme overkill for the average person, it is still possible to attain for those that have extreme needs. For example, I could see a small commercial business opting for a system like this that could be kept indoors and ran silently, requiring no maintenance, over buying, say, a large and more expensive diesel backup generator that requires routine maintenance, oil changes, and so forth, and then it's obviously super loud. It also switches from grid to battery in virtually an instant compared to a backup generator that can take up to a minute to warm up and connect. Now, as for DC outputs, there are none, zip, zilts, zero. No 12 volt, no USB. This is being sold as a home backup solution, not a product that you take camping, so it does make sense to me to ditch the DC entirely, and I can say from my own experience, I've never once used any of the DC or USB outputs on my Delta Pro Ultra or Smart Home Panel 2 combo in the past 2 years, so I'm not going to miss it at all. That takes us to scalability. The DPUX, when combined with one of their smart panels, is the most scalable home backup solution on wheels in the entire industry. Because it's a plug-and-play design, it's also easy and fast to install and can be easily relocated in no time at all. When you purchase one of these, most professional installs take 7 days from placing your order to actually having the unit online at your home, and it's completely handled by an EcoFlow authorized installer. Let me state that again. They handle the install. Nice. Now, what about backwards compatibility with the previous smart home panel too? Currently, the DPUX is not compatible, but there's supposed to be a firmware update sometime in the future that will allow you to support it. As of mid-October 2025, the DPUX is only compatible with one of the two new smart panels, the Smart Home Panel 3 or the Smart Gateway. The good news is that if you have the original Delta Pro Ultra, it is forward compatible with those two new smart panels right out of the box. I don't think you can mix the DPU with the DPUX. It has to be one or the other. So you can run the older products on the newer panels, but not the newer products on the older panels, if that makes any sense. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because I'm going to post when I do publish the update for that. I know a lot of people are interested in it. Now, as for the warranty, EcoFlow offers a 5-year manufacturer's warranty on the DPUX and then a 10-year manufacturer warranty on both the Smart Home Panel 3 and Smart Gateway. And of course, I took the DPUX into the secret lab here where I performed all kinds of crazy experiments on it. Here are those results. As for the results of the AC battery capacity test, they were 5,610 watt hours out of 6,144 for an average 91%. Note that the previous model, the Delta Pro Ultra that came out about 2 years ago, scored 88% using the same battery, so there has been an improvement in efficiency of this new model. Now, as for phantom load, parasitic drain, or what we call now AC consumption, I left the unit on with the inverter enabled for 12 hours and it used 12% of the battery according to the screen. 12% of 6144 watt hours is about 737 watt hours wasted, or approximately 61 watts of idle consumption for the 12 kilowatt inverter. Now, while that does sound like a lot of consumption, the previous model with only a 7200 watt inverter wasted 53 watts. So the new model uses only 8 more watts for a 60% larger inverter. That tells us that EcoFlow has worked really hard on minimizing the idle consumption of their inverters. So then, as I always do, I recharge the battery all the way back to 100% via the solar port, which is on the back. It took 706 watt hours at 15 amps to recharge the battery according to my battery meter with shunt. Since it used 706 to recharge instead of 737, we divide those two to get 104% efficiency of the MPPT controller. Wait, what? I'll explain. First, we're not really using an accurate method to begin with to determine idle consumption because we are relying on the battery monitor on the screen built into the EcoFlow. After 12 hours with the inverter on, it said 88% of the battery remained, so you assume, okay, that's 12% used. But what if I would have waited 5 more minutes and then it ticked down to 87%? That would mean it consumed another 61 watt hours, changing our math entirely to use 798 watt hours over 12 hours, or 66 watts of idle consumption. That's a pretty big jump of 5 watts, and this is why I never really liked figuring idle consumption this way, because you're relying on a meter you don't know how accurate it is. Now, the other way we can measure this is by how much actual energy goes back into the battery by recharging through the solar port, but there's a problem with that too because we don't know how efficient the MPPT solar controller is. All methods waste some power to convert whatever voltage your solar panels are to the voltage of the battery bank, and we've recently seen variations from 55% to 85% from low voltage controllers. This one's a high voltage controller, and that makes it far more efficient, obviously due to the over 100% result. We did recharge this battery at a quite high 82 volts at 15 amps because that was the bare minimum that I could pump into this. This means the actual idle result is probably somewhere in between 706 and 798 watt hours used over 12 hours. This works out to between 59 and 66 watts of idle consumption. So if we take the mean of those two numbers, we get 62.5 watts. This is reasonably close to the 61 watt guesstimate we originally came to. So for the sake of argument, let's just call AC idle consumption 62 watts for this product. Now, unfortunately, since we did score over 100% on the result of charging through the MPPT, we can't tell what the efficiency of it is, but it's probably very high, probably 98, 99%, which is more on par with large whole home backup inverters. My whole home system, for example, the 18,000 watt inverter I got, is 99.9% efficient because it only supports high voltage voltage arrays over 125 volts. So EcoFlow has essentially set a new high bar by making what is probably one of the world's most efficient whole home backup systems that could still roll around on wheels. Now, if you did leave the inverter on at 62 watts of idle consumption, it would totally kill one battery in just over 4.1 days. And this seems to jive with the time that appears up on screen, plus or minus about 6 hours. So 62 watts out of a 12 kilowatt inverter is top tier, and we discovered this has one of the highest MPPT efficient controllers in the industry, at least for a portable product. So if you're a stickler about efficiency, this is right up your wheelhouse. Now, I'm always asked how long stuff's going to run, compensating for usable capacity, which we just figured out. You can pause this chart. I'm going to put on screen. You can see approximately how long common appliances will run on this unit. Now for the results of all of our testing. We did the pure sine wave check under load, both 120 volts and 240 volts. It's 60 hertz. It passed. Inverter capacity test under max load. It's rated at 50 amps, 12 kilowatts. We could pull 15 kilowatts at 240 volts for about 5 seconds. That's a pass. For the cooling ability heat soak test, we ran it at 11,800 watts for at least 5 minutes, and there were no funky smells, sounds, or tastes. But we couldn't actually run it at 12,800 watts for any length of time without it shutting down. So what that means is you really don't want to exceed the 12,000 watts on this for any period of time. Inverter fan noise test at max power. 43 decibels from a meter away at full throttle, 12,000 watts? What? Yeah. That's incredible technology. For example, the inverter that's running my house in the other room, I had to close the door and put the curtain there to block the sound out. It's in there screaming. I can barely hear it a little bit through my steel door. And yet this is pulling 12,000 watts for 7 minutes now. And it's whisper quiet. That is very impressive. Thumbs up, EcoFlow. As for the max charge rate for AC power, now with the included cable, you can charge up to 1,800 watts, but in the app, you can select between 2 and 1,800 watts of charging. It can charge up to 12,000 watts or 12 kilowatts when hooked up to the smart home panel with 2 batteries, but I couldn't test that because I don't have that hooked up. Now, as for the solar input range, this has 2 MPPT controllers that run from 80 to 500 volts, 15 amps, 5,000 watts apiece. So then we did test the DC charge rate through those ports. It was done with 2 batteries attached because I have a second one hiding under the table here. At 80 volts, we're able to pull 1,200 watts, and that's times 2. At 100 volts, it's 1,500 watts times 2. At 150 volts, 2,230 watts times 2. 200 volts, 3,000 watts times 2, and at the equipment maximum of 220 volts, I was able to pull 3,200 watts times 2. Now, I have no doubt that with a 500 volt 15 amp charger, we could probably hit that 5,000 watt max per MPPT with no problems. I just don't have anything that can do 500 volts at 5,000 watts. As for the noise while charging, there was no detectable fan noise at any charging speed we were able to test at. Now, it's possible that when you charge at 12,000 watts, it could be audible or even moderate, but since I can't charge it at 12,000 watts, I couldn't test that. Simultaneous charging, yes, this is supported up to 12,000 watts with 2 batteries, but I didn't record that one. Now, as for the 240 volt charging ability, I couldn't test that again because 240 volt charges require a smart home panel, and I couldn't test it with the provided 120 volt cable, but it obviously will charge at 240 volts. Next, the UPS or uninterruptible power supply test. This has a 10 millisecond UPS mode in it. Seems kind of ridiculous to do this test for a product of this caliber, but I know you guys want to see it. So I am charging at full speed, 1,800 watts. The computer is running 120 watts. If you can see that, I'm running a full screen music video on YouTube. I got this thing plugged into the wall. As soon as I turn off the power, it's going to run the inverter, and we're looking to see if this thing locks up or freezes or does anything crazy. If it did, this thing would belong in the dumpster. So let's try it out. 3, 2, 1, place your bets. Oh, of course, not a surprise whatsoever. It works perfectly fine. You can see we stopped charging. I'll turn it back on just to make sure it works both ways, because you do want to be able to recover it quickly if the power comes back on. There it goes. Power came back on. Turn it off again. No freezing, everything works just fine. I do need to let you know that unlike the original Delta Pro Ultra, this only offers a 10 millisecond backup UPS. This does not have the online 0 millisecond UPS of the older model. The latter is actually kind of hard on the battery because it's running it all the time, and it wasn't supported through the smart home panel system anyway, so they ditched it. And I totally agree with that. This should just have the 10 millisecond regular backup style UPS that switches over. The 0 millisecond thing is just going to end up over time cooking in your batteries. Now, we were able to test when you charge this with a 120 volt grid, the 240 volt outlets still work, so that was a pass. Now, doing the reverse, doing 240 volt charging and running the 120 volt outlets, we couldn't do that, but it's very likely that if we were pumping 240 volts in, it's going to cut off the outlets because that's what the older model does. Amp interference test. Is the inverter in this clean or dirty? Will it work for ham radios, amplifiers without clicky, weird, buzzy noises? I'd really be surprised if this one doesn't pass. Let's go ahead and turn the inverter on and find out. It's so crystal clean, I couldn't even tell the amplifier was on. So yes, the signal is pristine, pass with flying colors. EMF or electromagnetic interference test. We have a baseline reading less than 1. Let's turn the power station on. So it does peg 80 right off the bat. So it's holding steady at about 70. Now do note that this does have wireless on, which is, I don't think, can be disabled. I haven't seen anything in the manual that says you can disable it. So it is on. It's going to be on no matter what. So it looks like with the system turned on, the inverter turned off, you're still getting 70. Let's go ahead and turn the inverter on, see if it gets better or worse. Now, I've never seen this happen before where you turn the inverter on and you get less interference. It's down to 30. Let's turn it off and see if we can repeat that. I wonder why that is. Maybe somebody in the comments can explain. How come when you turn something off, it goes higher? Now I turn the AC inverter on and it drops down to like 30. Yeah, and I'm right in front of the outlets, so that's kind of strange. Maybe somebody else that understands EMF better than I do can explain it, but that's actually a really low reading for a 12,000 watt inverter that's turned on. Usually we get 70, 80, 90. We're doing mid to upper 30s. So I'd say that's good. I would say turning it off and having it be 70 or 80 is not so good. So I guess the lesson here is if you want low EMF, leave the inverter on. So there are all the results. They all fell within expectations, and we had no test failures to report. So what do I think about the DPUX? First, I have to admit, I've been a big fan of the original DPU and Smart Home Panel 2 system since it came out. I've been running both of those for 24 hours a day, powering several buildings for almost 2 years now, and the issues have been minimal and mostly fixed by firmware. Now there's a bigger, badder, and even more efficient version of it out. I am stoked. Speaking of that efficiency, 62 watt idle consumption for a 12,000 watt inverter and over 99% MPPT efficiency from something that could run your whole home and still be moved opens up several opportunities for folks. You can now relocate your whole home backup system to a second or third location. Say you have a summer home or a winter cabin or a second home you split your time at, you can take the system with you easily. Now, while it's probably still too large to be practical, it can also run your home on wheels, meaning your RV, with a true dedicated 50 amp RV hookup. That is really difficult to find in a portable unit. And this system is IP54 rated, so it can technically be used in light rain. That kind of means under an awning of some kind. You don't want it to get very wet. It can kind of get splashed and still be okay. But how cool is that? It passed every test with flying colors. It's difficult for me to come up with gripes or even suggestions to make this thing better. One of the things I didn't care a great deal for on the original DPU was the low voltage MPPT. It was just a bit weak for something this size, and I use large residential panels to charge this. It just was a little bit too weak. Well, they fixed that. I never once used the DC or USB outputs on my DPU. They fixed that. And I wasn't all that thrilled with the idle consumption of over 52 watts for a 7200 watt inverter. They fixed that. It used to only be silent under 2000 watts. Now it's under 4,000 watts with barely a peep even at the full 12 kilowatts. I mean, this thing is whisper quiet. In the next room over, I have a $6,000 home inverter of a similar power. It sounds like the radiator fan in an old Dodge van that's starting to overheat. Ask me how I know. I did have to stretch to find something I didn't like about the DPUX. Now, I don't care too much for the hidden MC4 connectors in the back. It makes them impossible to disconnect without using a tool. I also feel like I'm going to break them every time I use them. And I actually did break them on another power station. So yeah. Now, if I was building this, what I would use would be XT120 connectors, which are anti-spark. And I just have an adapter cable made that went to a pair of MC4s. And it's easy to plug and unplug without any special tools. That being said, the DPUX does ship with this external MC4 switch box. So basically you run your solar panels through here. This side gets plugged into the Delta Pro Ultra X. You can see it has 2 pairs of MC4s. Then it has a big heavy-duty clicky switch on it. And this prevents sparks and allows you to turn your solar panel system on and off. So it does actually come with a built-in solution where you don't have to, unlike the original DPU, use a special tool to get your solar cables back out. Now me, I personally don't care for external connector boxes. I'd prefer to plug my panels directly into the unit. I do also understand that some local codes, especially those of you in California, do require an external cutoff switch for the solar panels, and that's probably why we have this box at all. Now, I'm also not a fan of the AC or power buttons because they're kind of, you can hear that, they're kind of just wobbly, kind of loose, clicky. They don't feel very, when you press them, there's no confidence. Those LED lights are so dim, you can't even tell that they're on, so it would be nice if they put better switches in and brighter LEDs. I mean, that's not that much of a complaint, I guess. And again, this is an early release model, so maybe that's something they're planning on changing anyway. Now, one minor gripe that can be easily updated in firmware is the fact that EcoFlow decided to force a 1-hour maximum timeout on the screen. EcoFlow, please update the screen to allow a never timeout like every one of your other products, and give us an option in the app to completely turn off the blinky light show. If you have this thing in a dark room, it's especially annoying and can be dangerous to people that are sensitive to flashing lights, so just consider it as a safety update for your customers. Now, that's about all there is for me to say about it. This thing is world class, and I'm very eager to get the thing hooked up to their new smart home panels, which now they offer 2 different versions of it. First, they have the Smart Home Panel 3, which is a true beast. This thing is massive. It's like 4 foot tall. And it can handle up to 200 amps through 32 circuits. It has fully programmable power distribution and monitoring at the circuit level, automation, AI optimization. The Smart Home Panel 3 is basically designed to replace your main home panel. Now, you don't have to do this. It can act as a sub-panel off the main panel. But this thing is fully capable of running a full 200 amp residential service to the vast majority of American homes. Now, say you're looking for something smaller, more of a sub-panel. They do now offer a smaller, cheaper version that only has 6 circuits, but is the same 200 amp service called the Smart Gateway. This is what I'm going to be installing. This has a unique feature the Smart Home Panel 3 doesn't have, that you can actually choose which circuits are powered by battery or grid and set up automation to switch back and forth, say depending on state of charge of your batteries, or you can just go to the app and say, I want this circuit to be on the grid. I want this circuit to be run off of batteries. Because one of the issues I had with the last version that is if I wanted to charge a big load, like say I wanted to plug in my EV, I'd be forced to kill my EcoFlow batteries if I wanted to do that when they were already low. Now if my batteries are low, I can just tell that circuit charge from the grid instead. Same thing when my construction crew wants to use a 240 volt welder or compressor all day long. No longer will my batteries be sitting at 30% at 7 o'clock at night after a long day of work. So I'm going to install the Smart Gateway to replace the Smart Home Panel 2 in the next few weeks. That means we need to extend the length of some of the wires or replace them entirely. I'm pondering how I'm going to do this, but I will film the process when I do. Product price. I'm sure you guys want to know how much this thing costs. As of the production of this video, mid-October, final pricing is not yet available for the DPUX or either of the smart panels. The DPUX will be on pre-order until November 2nd, and at that time will go to retail sale with a final published price. However, you can use the link I'm going to provide to get up to $1,000 off with pre-order. That will also include a $1,000 credit towards home installation. So if you're watching this after November 2nd's release date, I do have a discount code in the description that will work for a certain percentage off the sale price through the end of 2025. So whatever the final price ends up being, and I know it's somewhere south of $7,000, It's still cheaper and faster to implement than other commercially installed home backup systems like a Tesla Powerwall or a whole home gas generator. And that generator has no return on investment and requires constant maintenance. Here's the thing, when this is not backing up your home, the DPUX can use time of use charging, plug in some solar panels. You end up saving hundreds or thousands of dollars a year on your electric bill, so it does pay for itself after about 6 years according to what EcoFlow says. Also, since it's plug and play, the installation cost is about half to a third of a typical home generator or battery backup system. And it's a toolless design, so it lets you take it with you in a matter of minutes in case of a bug out scenario, or simply to use at a different location or at a vacation home. Good luck trying to do that with any other 12,000 watt home backup system. Really. The DPUX and smart home panel combo ends up being a unique lower cost to implement solution that, guess what, totally qualifies you for the current and soon to expire 30% federal tax credit. So if you buy the system now and have it installed before December 31st, you can knock up to 30% off come tax time. Now you can't do that with a gas generator or some of the DIY battery boxes strapped to a dolly. You pretty much have to have a system like this. That means you can get the install done and have a receipt in hand for your tax records, enjoy a professionally installed system rocking a 5-year warranty, have it done in 7 days, have that peace of mind the next time that big storm rolls through your hood. You can look over and say, honey, no worries, EcoFlow has our back. Now there's a catchphrase, EcoFlow has your back. Dang, I should have really become a marketing genius instead of a dirty Sogen slinging hobo that lived in a van down by the river. Oh well. Can't change the past. So if you're interested in the DPUX, the link and discount code is going to be in the description of this video below. I'm also going to put a link here at the bottom of the screen along with a QR code that you can scan if you're watching me on TV with your mobile device. Take you on over to the EcoFlow store page where you can check out the Delta Pro Ultra X and their new smart home panels. Thanks for watching, and until next time.
Odin commands you to like and subscribe, and clean my litter box.